And so I do have to say up front, nothing to be taken as financial advice of any way, shape, or form. But yeah, so here to talk a little bit about what Moonbeam is, what Polkadot is, and what interoperability really looks like moving forward, and why it's interesting. So this was actually a slide that I like to show from 2020 when we were kind of getting the project pulled together and starting to think about this idea. And at the time, all blockchains were kind of siloed. There was no real good connection between blockchains. They couldn't talk to each other, and so it limited folks to kind of these islands. And so that was really where the idea for Moonbeam came from. But to get to what is Moonbeam, we need to kind of get to what is Polkadot, because Moonbeam plays a very significant role in the Polkadot ecosystem. And so if you think about those islands and how everything was siloed, one of the things that Polkadot looked at was, well, we believe that the future is going to be multi-chain, and so they've created a system for blockchains to natively speak to one another. And so interoperability was key for the Polkadot ecosystem and the Polkadot idea, where these subchains, which is where Moonbeam comes in, they're called parachains. They're able to connect into Polkadot and now talk to any other parachain that is also connected to Polkadot. And so they Gavin Wood, who's the founder of Polkadot and designer of Polkadot, he was actually the CTO of Ethereum, and he believed that Ethereum was great, but he felt that to really be scalable, you needed this kind of interoperable protocol where blockchains could specialize in things, but connect to each other kind of natively. Okay, so with that in mind, of the future was going to be multi-chain, that's where Polkadot was building, like, what is Moonbeam? And so at the highest level, Moonbeam is, it's an Ethereum compatible parachain on Polkadot. And so when you think about, like I just described, Polkadot, of all these blockchains being able to specialize and talk to each other, what is Moonbeam's specialty? Moonbeam's specialty is the ability to process Ethereum-like transactions and Ethereum-like applications. And so folks can take the code that they've deployed to Ethereum or a Binance Smart Chain or Avalanche and deploy it to Moonbeam, and it should work seamlessly out of the box. Now, some of the things that we're working on to kind of layer into that is functionality around what we're calling cross-chain connected applications. And so internally to Polkadot, you can work across these other parachains, but externally, you're able to connect to other blockchains as well. So why, if you look at everything I've kind of talked through so far about Polkadot and these islands, and why is the future multi-chain? There are a couple of different views that I have specifically. And the biggest one for me is increasing users and assets across different chains. And so if you think about these new ecosystems that are getting deployed, there's already this large crypto universe out there where folks may be very specific to Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain or AVAX or Solana, that to grow that ecosystem that might be new and kind of starting to get off the ground, users need to be able to migrate and start working on these new ecosystems. And so we believe that the specialization around blockchain is gonna drive teams to be multi-chain, but also the ability to expand your total addressable market is really gonna drive more and more teams to go natively multi-chain from the start. So substrate, you've probably seen, has been mentioned here a couple times, like, what is substrate? So at the highest level, substrate is a blockchain development framework. And so in the ethos of what Polkadot was built for, which is these specialized blockchains that are going to be across the globe, you need a framework for being able to build something that looks the same, feels the same, and talks the same to these other blockchains that are all kind of connected. Otherwise, things are going to break. And so Substrate is a framework for being able to build your own blockchain. So you've probably heard about Cosmos as well. Cosmos has it's called Tendermint, is kind of the blockchain framework that they provide. Well, in Polkadot, it's called Substrate. Those are the two predominant, predominant frameworks for building your own blockchain that's provided. Now, the big difference between how Cosmos is set up and how Polkadot is set up, Polkadot has a shared security model. Now, what does that mean? A shared security model is the ability for these blockchains to essentially have their blocks validated by the Polkadot ecosystem. And so Polkadot has, I think it's 275 validators who are running the network all at once. And I like to describe Polkadot as kind of a backbone. And so all of the parachains like Moonbeam that connect in are just a piece that plug into this backbone, but that backbone controls making sure that all of the transactions that it's processing are valid and the state continues to stay valid. And so that's really where Polkadot comes in, because it's just validating blocks for these other blockchains to connect to each other and talk to one another. Now, that's different than the Cosmos ecosystem, where Cosmos has what they call IBC, that you stand up kind of your own specialized blockchain, and then you have to connect to other blockchains directly using a specific validator set, so that it's kind of, it's almost like a hub and spoke model, but everyone has to kind of create their own hub and spoke, whereas in Polkadot, you're all connected via this backbone. And we believe it's just a better way to be able to scale, as well as provide this seamless interoperability between blockchains. So I mentioned earlier, on top of providing this Ethereum-like compatibility, like what else is Moonbeam focusing on or providing? And one of the themes that we're really focusing on a lot of last year and a lot for this year coming up is what we call connected contracts. And so connected contracts in our view are where triggering something on Moonbeam can trigger something on another blockchain. And so using that in the Polkadot model, that would be something on Moonbeam could potentially trigger something on Challe or Hydra DX. These are other parachains that are connected to Polkadot using XCM, which is the native message tracing protocol for Polkadot. And so that fundamentally changes how applications can be built when on one blockchain, you can trigger something that triggers something on another blockchain. That's a pretty cool concept that is just now starting to come to fruition over the past couple of months. But I believe that you're going to start to see more and more and more of this start to pick up over time, because this is where we feel there's going to be a significant amount of value brought to the ecosystem at large moving forward. So how do we do that? And so, on Moonbeam, you can design these smart contracts that, because of either XCM internally to Polkadot, or working with folks like Axelar, Layer 0, Wormhole, these new what they call general message passing protocols, you can facilitate those contracts on Moonbeam, but now use these connectors to reach these other audiences and blockchains. We feel that like the Ethereum compatibility that Moonbeam provides gives people a great like building surface to create these, because we have interoperability kind of built in from the start. And so providing that framework, as well as a lot of documentation around how to work with these things, provides teams a great spot to really launch these protocols. And then the security and the specialization of Polkadot really does provide teams with an amazing functionality to plug into these blockchains and leverage services from these other blockchains internally to Polkadot. So you might be saying, well, like, I know teams are going multi-chain. That's fine. Like, they're already doing it today. Like, how is this any different? And so, in the past, what you've seen is there've been kind of two different ways that teams have gone kind of multi-chain. One is a multi-instance deployment. So basically, you take your code and you deploy it to another chain. And then you take your code and you deploy it to another chain. but that's not connected. And so we've seen firsthand with folks like SushiSwap. So SushiSwap deployed, I think, to like 16 different chains at one point, and it was all siloed. Those couldn't talk to each other. They didn't really have the ability to know what was going on in each ecosystem. They couldn't really actually like interoperate in any way at all. They were just their own deployment running in their own ecosystem. So you're fragmenting users and liquidity. As well as features, excuse me. The other way was a fully centralized deployment where you were trying to connect outward, but it didn't actually have that functionality built in from a bridging perspective. You could just move assets, but you weren't actually able to connect them in a way where you could enact protocol upgrades or if a new governance referenda goes through, you couldn't really do anything. It was just the ability to kind of connect and maybe move some liquidity over. So how is this different with this framework of general message passing that XCM provides, as well as some of these message passing providers like Axelar and Wormhole? So what it does is it enables you to just send messages. You don't have to actually send assets any longer. You still can. You can use them for moving. I have USDC on Ethereum and I want to move it to Moonbeam. You can use them for that, surely. But also the key feature that they've really focused on is this message passing, where you can actually just send a message saying, unlock this or move this into this account. And so that can be enacted using these general messages. That's like a fundamentally new way that things can be built, which is really, really innovative and really cool. So I'll give you some examples. One example we like to look at is Lido. So Lido is deployed to Moonbeam, and it's for staking. It's called ST dot. And so what does that actually look like? And so all of the contracts for Lido are actually running on Moonbeam for this implementation for staking dot. But the actions that are occurring are moving dot from the relay chain, Polkadot, down to Moonbeam and locking them on Moonbeam. Which is, so it's basically just using this messages to say when a user says, hey, I have dot and I want to lock it up to get ST dot, it's happening on Moonbeam, but it's enacting something to happen on the relay chain where it's actually getting locked. So it's a really cool use case of being able to kind of take a message on Moonbeam, send it to Polkadot, and lock something on Polkadot, which is fundamentally different than it had been able to be done in the past. Another example, which is going to be going live, we've been told probably in the next month, so sometime late March is when this team anticipates to go live, is Prime Protocol. And so in Prime Protocol's use, they have kind of like it's almost like a hub and spoke model where they realize they want to be multi-chain from the start. And so they're building their protocol from the start to be multi-chain. And so what does that mean? So in their specific use case, they're going to have a brain and the ledger for what they do. They're a lending and borrowing protocol with a stable coin on top of it. And so the actual brain that's going to facilitate all of the transactions is going to be living on Moonbeam. But they've already got deployments on all these test nets on Avalanche, Arbitrum, Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum. And so the users can actually, if I'm on Avalanche and I have a bunch of assets on Avalanche, but I hear that there's a new NFT drop going on over on Arbitrum. In the past, you would have to say, okay, well, I'm going to take some ETH or a like asset, I'm going to bridge it over, and then I have to go over there and I have to actually take it and start using it in Avalanche. What Prime allows you to do is say, well, I already have assets on Avalanche. Why can't I just unlock some natively on Arbitrum so that I can get into this NFT launch? That's what they enable using these messages. So basically, you can send a message from your Avalanche deployment that says, hey, I've already locked up, I've got $100 on Avalanche, but I just need to unlock $20 on Arbitrum or Polygon, or you name it. It'll allow you to just unlock that seamlessly without actually having to move that asset. It's just sending a message to validate, yes, this user has that $100. Sure, they can unlock 20 on this other chain. So it's a use case where like the assets aren't actually moving. It's just using messaging, which is really, really cool. And then I think this is the last one that I like to kind of showcase to teams is currently we're working with a bunch of different teams who are saying, well, for Polkadot specifically, Moonbeam has this Ethereum compatibility. And so what would be really cool is all these other parachains, not everyone has this Ethereum compatibility. And so when you look at the bridging providers of these general message passing providers, they've all connected to Moonbeam because it looks and feels like Ethereum. And so they are able to connect into it without having to do massive overhauls of their code base or increasing, any kind of risk surface because it looks and feels like Ethereum. And so these other parachains that may not have Ethereum compatibility, so like Interlay or Kilt or Parallel, are saying, well, we still need the ability to get liquidity, and we can get that liquidity from Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain or some of these other ecosystems where users can bridge onto Moonbeam, but then get over to our parachain. And so what's being worked on today, and should be live relatively shortly, is the ability for someone on something like Interlay to click, bridge USDC. It'll actually bring that USDC in from Ethereum to Moonbeam, but then go right to Interlay. And so it's kind of a port of entry so that assets can flow in through to these other parachains. But again, one click and using messaging to be able to use that to pull in assets and users into this ecosystem. Oh, and this is similar this is the last one, I promise. This is with Centrifug. So Centrifug do real world assets. And so they work with traditional companies who maybe want to tokenize invoices or things of the like. And in this use case, what they're doing is they kind of have these pools where these assets sit, and there has to be a whitelist to be able to access them. Now, on Moonbeam, the predominant lending and borrowing team is called Moonwell. Now, they want to be able to enable users to actively be able to engage with these Centrifug assets. And on Moonbeam, you need the ability to, if a user tries to put money into a pool on Moonwell that's connecting to Centrifug, it has to go check this whitelist. And so you can use these messages to say, hey, is this user approved to get into this pool? And it can come back with, yes, it is. And it'll allow that transaction basically in one click to be able to say, is this, it's like a data dip where you say, hey, if this user is okay, unlock it over here. And so there's a bunch of new use cases that we're seeing around these connected contracts that are really fundamentally new to the industry. It is really exciting. And so just to kind of wrap up here, what are the benefits of these connected contracts approaches? And so one thing is it really solves this fragmentation issue. And so in many instances, when teams have gone multi-chain, it breaks a lot of things. It breaks compatibility, it silos users, you fragment liquidity away from each other. And so in this case, you can kind of try and pull all that together in a more seamless approach. Increased efficiencies across these specialized chains. So you can start to think about a world where maybe on one chain that does identity, one chain does lending and borrowing, one chain has a DEX. You can start to compose applications that can pull like best of breed or like highest value from each of those to create an application where that application could be running on Moonbeam, but using these other parachains or even using something on Ethereum to create something greater than what was available to be able to build today. And then the last piece that I feel is probably the most important is really improving the user experience. And so crypto is hard, like period, end of statement, for anyone, whether it's builders, whether it's users. That's been a huge barrier to entry to being able to get more and more folks to come in and start utilizing some of the great aspects of crypto, whether it's DeFi, whether it's NFTs, whether it's gaming. The user experience has really lagged. And so this is the kind of thing where when you can start embedding these message passing protocols, whether it's XCM or externally with Axelar, Wormhole, Layer 0, when you can embed an API into an experience that says, user doesn't have to know what blockchain they're on. They just want to be able to access this NFT or this money market or this DEX or swap an asset. And you can just click, and behind the scenes, you can get to that asset. You can get to that pool. You can get that NFT without having to do all of these steps in between. That's really the goal for all of this, is make it easier for users to interact with any kind of application on any blockchain without them having to have like specialized knowledge about it. So with that, I'm more I like to move things quickly and happy to answer questions. I like giving people back time in their day, but this is a great way to interact with Moonbeam. You can come check out the ecosystem and the community. These are all the links that you can certainly jump into. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer some questions here, and I'm happy to give any kind of detail that folks might be looking for. So I really appreciate everybody joining today, and happy to open up the floor for questions and answers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nathaniel. So we do have a couple of questions here, and the first here is from Nikhil, who wants to know if Moonbeam could be used to create smart contracts for asset tokenization.
Yes, absolutely. So Moonbeam, on Moonbeam, you can create ERC20s, ERC721s, 1155s. All of the Ethereum-like standards are supported on Moonbeam, and so you can create a variety of contracts that can do a variety of things. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely, you can tokenize assets or do things along those lines.
All right, great. So what's the difference between WASM and EVM?
Yep, WASM versus EVM. And so WASM, without getting into too much detail, I think that WASM, does have some benefits in terms of speed and maybe scalability. The thing that, we've generally just focused on with the EVM is that, like, the EVM may not be perfect in some ways, and I think WASM is probably technically better, but there are a lot of tooling and infrastructure and developers who just understand the EVM. And so it's not always the best technology that wins sometimes. Sometimes it's what people understand. And so, I believe that they both have a lot of merit. They're both great technology stacks. For us, we just believed that the EVM was what developers wanted to use and really understood, and there was a whole community around it. So that's why we focused on the EVM versus integrating with WASM or providing kind of WASM functionalities.
Okay, amazing. So Amanda asked a question, and she wants to know if this is similar to a Forex platform. So
Moonbeam is just a layer one. So Moonbeam is a development platform where people can come build on top of that. And so if you look at it, you could say, okay, well, there are DEXs on Moonbeam like StellaSwap or BeamSwap, or there are money markets like Moonwell or Midas. There are NFT teams and platforms like Moonbeams or Exile Racers or Glimmer Apes. There's a variety of things. So it's just a platform for builders to come build things on top of.
Okay. And so there's a last question here from Anil, who wants to know what websites or services are currently using Moonbeam.
Yeah. So I can, I just mentioned a couple of them. I just mentioned a couple, whether it's Moonwell or StellaSwap or Midas, BeamSwap. Those are some. I would encourage people, I'll pop this link in here. XYZ, I think is ttmb.xyz. I think that's, I'll confirm real quick. I think that's the link I wanted to share. There's a site called Downtown Moonbeam that is a great community-led, it's a community-led website that is all focused on highlighting the Moonbeam ecosystem. So let me just check. Yep, that's done. That's the URL you should use. So if you check that out, you'll see all of the teams who are deployed to Moonbeam. And there's a bunch of really cool stuff where folks can learn about the ecosystem and right through there, check out some of the stuff that's been deployed.
Great. Thank you, Nathaniel. So there's another question here from Ganesh, who wants to know if you have any plans for India.
Yeah, we don't have we don't have a specific focus on any regions at this point. I think that we would love to push into the Indian market more. We do have good collaborations like Biconomy, who are India based, and I think that we could work even more closely with. But we don't have anybody in region right now. We do have an ambassador program and community where teams do, people can kind of come and learn about what we're doing, and then they can help put together, whether it's in-person events, whether it's online events. Generally, they help kind of spread the word regionally about Moonbeam, and there's challenges and things that they can be a part of. So I encourage anybody to go check that out. To get in touch, I think that, let me see if I can find a link for you real quick. But yeah, we have an ambassador program that anyone can go sign up for, and there's kind of a review process. I'll grab you the link and I'll drop it in here. There you go. You can apply to be an ambassador right through that link, and check it out. So it looks like David said, part of the .safari team, Polkadot Kusama in real life in Kenya. Love to see Moonbeam in Kenya. Sure, happy to try and support you guys. We work very collaboratively with the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystems, all the parachains, and so if you're putting together events or anything along those lines, I don't think we have anybody in region necessarily that could show up and do something live right now, but happy to support it online and see how we can add value to what you guys are building.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Angela saying very interesting. Thank you for an excellent presentation. And I also want to say thank you so much, Nathaniel, for this very insightful presentation. And also thank you for joining us on Unit Masters, and hoping that we'll see you again some other time.
Great. Thank you so much.
None of our demo sessions. Yeah. So thank you all for joining today's demo session. We look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for joining, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.